Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Freedmen Collective. I'm Darvell, joined by some great gentlemen tonight. We're going to talk about some very important stuff. So, again, please stay tuned, ride with us. We're going to do a couple clips. We're going to talk about this content pertaining to where the Black community sits on the spectrum with the Democratic Party. I don't know. What do you think about it, Jahrod? You want to introduce yourself to the people?
Hey, how you doing, guys? My name is Jahrod Bin Lamont. I'm originally from the Downriver area. I'm a 23-year Army veteran, both infantry and military intelligence. I work in the IT for one of the big threes here in Detroit. Community organizer for a local nonprofit, and as of February of this year, I joined the local ADOS chapter, ADOS Detroit, and have been an active member since then.
Cool. Ernest, what's going on, man?
Oh, yeah. What's up, everybody? Name's Ernest, and from Chicago. Just give you guys a little bit of background about myself. 26 years old, HBCU grad. I've lived around the Midwest area for a good chunk of my life. So I've lived in Chicago for a few years, lived out in Ohio, and now I'm out here in Lansing, Michigan. So, looking forward to having a good dialogue with you guys and just sharing information and thoughts and, building from there.
That's what's up, Ernest. Thanks for dropping that on us. And now we got to turn to the brain man of this particular show, Stedman. What's going on with you, sir?
Hey, my name is Stedman. I'm originally from Inkster, Michigan. I live in Detroit now. I've been involved with ADOS Detroit for a year and a half. But always kind of just had an interest in history and Black politics, ADOS politics, world history. And so, activism, radical activism, revolutionary ideology. So Black radicalism. So that's it.
Oh, that's what's up, man.
Get to the bottom of this.
We do. Well, we hope we're not on the bottom, but we might be, right? Just to wrap it up, my name is Darvell, as I said at the top of the show. I've been involved in the ADOS movement for, I say, about 2 years now or so. I am also a resident of Metro Detroit. I've been involved in the community for the past 5 years in different capacities. I believe in the Black community's strength and power. I believe we're the most underrated, but most critically pivotal group in this country. We made this country with the labor. We continue to populate this country with our culture. In terms of everything that you see today has been some way, shape, or form touched by the Black community. And I believe in this country doing right by this community, and this community getting the equity and equality that it deserves and has earned, including all of the back pay, which are the reparations that are well overdue for this community. So we are here today, the Freedmen Collective, to have the discussion. So I'm going to just bounce it over to Stedman. Stedman, what we're going to be talking about today is the relationship between the Black community and the Democratic Party, right? So what would you say? How would you describe that? How did that begin, and where are we now in terms of that relationship?
So essentially, the prior to 1964, with the Civil Rights Act, the Democratic, or Black people primarily voted Republican. With the passing of the Civil Rights Act, Black people decidedly became members of the Democratic Party, supporting Democratic politicians, even though really up until the 80s, you still had primarily, like, the southern states were still Democratic. So you had a lot of Democratic senators, they call them Blue Dog Democrats or Dixiecrats, who were like Southern, anti-Black, pro-segregation, racist. Strom Thurmond, I think his name is Richard Byrd from West Virginia. And so, there wasn't a total ideological shift as it pertains to like equality or justice for Black people in any type of way, really, until like the 80s. And then at that point, you started to see a shift in party ideology from one more towards, I guess, what you would consider more right-leaning, center-left. So whereas you could look at the Democratic Party at 64 and after as a whole, adopting more of a, equal or equality stance, anti-segregation message as a whole. So independent of, members in the South or in conservative districts, you still saw, you saw that until about, like I said, the 80s, when Democrats suffered heavy losses. They lost to Reagan. And I want to say it was Hubert Humphrey. He lost, and Hubert Humphrey only won like 2 states, and not even his home state. And that was really when Democrats began to shift to a more center-left party, or now I guess what they would consider themselves moderates today. And so, yeah, I mean, the dynamic really is one of, it's usury, I guess is what you call it now. The Democratic Party wants Black support. They want Black votes, but they don't want to offer anything substantive to Black people. And when I say Black people, I'm referring specifically to ADOS or, descendants of the individuals who built this country for free. So you see now they essentially want your vote. They want you to vote for Joe Biden without promising you any kind of, political concessions. They're not talking about funding Black communities in any kind of measurable way or reparations Joe Biden's not even apologizing for the crime bill. So, and that's still kind of a separate conversation. But generally what you see is like, the Democratic Party today, the relationship of the Democratic Party today with Black people is one of like, expectation that we are just going to be Democrats because Republicans are so bad, and we don't want anything else in exchange for our vote. Our vote isn't for sale; it's already been gifted away.
What? So you say that? So does that mean that we should be looking at Republicans again? Should we like go back that direction? Or is there nothing?
I think one of the things that that has happened to me since really being involved with the ADOS group specifically is that I've matured enough politically to understand that I can't tell you how to vote. All I can hope to do is give you the information about the policies that both parties are offering you. And I mean, based on what I can see, the Republicans aren't offering anything either. So, if somebody was to specifically ask me, what do they think, or what do I think? I would still say, no, don't vote for Republicans because they're not offering anything either. But there's something that has to be done as far as leverage. And so, you have to figure out a way to either maintain leverage or gain leverage by voting for third party, or you have to vote Republican to get some type of leverage. I would rather vote third party. But it's Republican. The Republican Party that's a whole nother conversation about why we used to vote Republican and why we don't anymore.
Yeah, I think just to jump in, it was more of a ideology switch between both parties, whereas now Republicans are pandering for the rural rights, which are the whites who were damaged during the civil rights when Blacks actually gained all of these opportunities to participate in the workforce equally. And so I think Richard Nixon or, one of those presidents, they adopted that strategy. And that strategy was, how can we get these people who felt isolated by the Democrats, by them embracing these policies that help uplift Black Americans? And what we've seen, after the 70s is the Republicans taking over that that base that's in the South, and Black people starting to lean more into Democrats because the policies were benefiting us in a sense, or at least their approach in certain cities, like even in Detroit, it was aimed at the citizens or residents of that city so that they are able to get some policies. But over time, of course, the okie doke has occurred. And now we're, like you say, we're in a stagnant situation. So I did want to just add that in there.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. And you said something very, very valuable there. As you said, the Democratic policies are advantageous to us. They're beneficial to us in the sense that they're directionally correct. Now, they're far short. I don't know, Jahrod, if you would say that these Democratic policies are still far short of what we really need and what we've called for in the past, but not with the same type of fervor or fire in our belly that we are asking for it now, especially. Like the Democratic policies are just directionally supportive of us, but they're not actually transformative.
Yeah, agreed. So I mean, most of the policies that what really got black people into the Democratic Party primarily was the civil rights bills that were passed and the voting rights bills, right? This actually the shift from the Democrat or black people leaving the Republican Party and moving towards the Democratic Party can actually go back into the 1920s. There were several different bills that were being offered, and the Republicans, refusal really to stand firmly in these civil rights bills. There were several. There was one in 1957. There's a bunch of different years that they were trying to get civil rights bills passed, and they couldn't. Lynching laws. All these were the primary concerns of black people politically at that time, from the 20s all the way up going into the 60s. The class-based policies or what have you. Those that was a lift, kind of like a lift all boats, tides lift, a high tide lifts all boats type of thing. Black people were not strategically targeted in those, and in fact, the New Deal. If you look at the New Deal and you look at a lot of the safety social nets, the stronghold that the Southern Democrats had, because remind you, the New Deal was done by Franklin D. Roosevelt. A lot of the compromise that had to be made between, the Union, Labor Democrats, big government Democrats versus the Southern Democrats, because the Southern Democrats, they had a leverage, right? You know what I'm saying? Because the Republicans at this point now were big business, and they were fighting all the labor laws and big government laws and taxation and what have you. That gave the Southern Democrats, because they weren't large in numbers, but they had a solid block that, hey, whatever side that they go on, the legislation would go. So what they basically made sure of was that black people were written out of almost all of the social programs, such as Social Security, a lot of the New Deal welfare that was coming out. A lot of these programs blacks were written out of. For instance, the Social Security, when it first was implemented, it did not go to domestic workers. That means people who work, in homes or what have you, and farm workers, which at that time, black people, that was the industries that we were most heavily, represented in. When the laws were being passed in the 30s, 40s, 50s for labor, to be able to, unionize, one of the two professions that were left out were domestic workers and farm workers. That was intentional. And that was all due to the stronghold that the Democrats had in the South, and their leveraging position that they used as being a minority inside of the Democratic Party, right? But they were a powerful minority, and they were able to put their influence was oversized, because again they split the fence between the Republicans or the Democrats. So the the labor union part, big government part of the Democratic Party, they ceded a lot. They threw black people under the bus for the most part. And then basically at a certain point in time, the Democratic Party basically, just walked away from actually doing anything substantive specifically for black people. Okay. And so now you can't do something specifically for black people. You have to, you're going to have to wrap it into a minorities conversation, a class-based conversation, because the knee-jerk reaction, whether liberal, conservative, or in the middle, is that if you can't do something specifically for black people, if you do, then there's a problem. And so that's why a lot of these class-based policies don't work for us, because the damage was specific. It was very specific.
Right. Yeah. So no, that's a very good point. So let's do this. So I know that Stedman, you had a video you wanted us to kind of look through to kind of bring some context to this relationship, especially kind of that's going to lead us in a contextual way, in a substantive way, toward the reality that Jahrod kind of outlined there briefly. So what is this video we're going to watch? What is it, a sketch or something, Stedman? I don't really understand.
It's a joke from Dave Chappelle's. I think it was the last comedy special, not the 846, but Sticks and Stones, where it talks about like Iceberg Slim and the bottom, I don't know, B theory, bottom bitch theory, and like mileage on the whole. So the whole concept is like, it's essentially breaking down what I feel like has become the black community's role with the Democratic Party. You know, that we're the bottom, you know, are we the bottom B of the Democratic Party? And, you know,
Right.
Are we past our mileage?
Ooh, mileage. Okay, so let's crack into it. Let's try and watch this first clip and see what it's talking about.
To me, that encapsulates my entire experience before I left the show. And the book is called Pimp. It's written by a guy named Iceberg Slim. Here, bring it up here. This is Matthew. Matthew is from France. He's white. And yet, he has an original copy of this book written by a black American who was a pimp in the 40s. Iceberg Slim, his real name was Robert Beck. He got the name Iceberg because he was in a bar in Chicago and there was a shootout in the bar and a bullet went through this nigga's hat and he still finished his drink. Pimps love shit like that. They said, man, you ice cold. And he said, I like that. And it stuck. This book is so heavy in the front. It has a glossary of pimp terms because the ideas are so foreign to the American ears. For instance, do you know what the phrase mileage on a hoe means? Of course you don't. Mileage on a hoe is a very wild concept. It means that pimps understand there's a finite amount of bad shit a person can do before they'll lose their fucking mind. And a good pimp can look at a woman that he's never seen before and call it. She's good for 500 fucks. That's her mileage. Anything over that, that bitch is gonna spill. They do it to you. Why the fuck you think most of us work from 9 to 5? 9 to 6 might kill a bitch. Iceberg Slim was the one that broke down what a bottom bitch was. Does anyone know what a bottom bitch is? Anyone? What's a bottom bitch, sir?
It's your prostitute that's the best out of all of them, that brings in the most money.
That's right. That's exactly right. Are you black? That's right. A bottom bitch is a pimp's number one hoe. She's even a bitch that helps him keep the other bitches in line. I will repeat. She's even the bitch that helps him keep the other bitches in line. If the pimp was McDonald's, then the bottom bitch is French fries. The rest of them bitches is like fish sandwiches, and cherry pies, and shit like that.
All right, so what was the old? Jahrod,
That shit is funny, man. Dude. Oh man, so in that first setup, how we can make the analogy between what Dave Chappelle is saying, okay? So the pimp would be, in this case, Iceberg Slim will be equivalent to the Democratic Party, right? The bottom bitch, for lack of a better word, I'm just going to use the terms that, was used in the video. That is black people, right? And mind you, when you ask the question, and honestly, when I think of that term, you like the bottom B, that's the best one, but yeah, because she's down. Yeah. See what I'm saying? You think would be bottom? Like, would you be the top B? No, the bottom is because she's down. You know what I'm saying? You ride or die, right? And that's how black people are in the Democratic Party. I would show the graphic, right? That shows like how when you look at for the past 40-something years or so, actually 60-something years since the civil rights passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, voting rights in 65. If you look at it, if you break it down by demographics, right, or basically race or who votes for who in each presidential election, you break it down by race, you break it down by gender. Black people vote for the Democratic Party in upwards of 80-something to 90-something% each election. Every other demographic, white, Hispanic, don't vote nowhere near that total. right? It's so huge. So that kind of goes into the whole aspect of, right, the bottom B is the one that's, you know, is your highest earner, that's getting everything. And on top of that, another thing that he mentioned was the bottom B or whatever also puts in line everybody else. And so you can kind of think of that as your, you know, your talking heads, like on MSNBC, you know, all of the political people and pundits, right? You have a lot of black political pundits, and the way and what they say, you know, goes actually kind of sets the tone for the rest of the conversation in the Democratic space, right? So, you know, so it is very that the analogy is very true, and it really falls suit into what we're talking about here.
Wow. Well, all right. So there's a second part. Should we go to it?
Oh, before we jump in, that one thing I do want to add on to what Jahrod was saying was, you know, if we looking back at that first clip and what he said with the mileage on the whole, and how there's only a finite amount of things a person can take before they're fed up, before they lose their mind or lose their marbles. Same thing is what we're seeing with the black community when it comes to exercising our vote. And so there's only a finite amount of bad shit or conditions that we will put up for. There's only so many George Floyds that we will put up for. And the party tells us, oh, well, we'll fix this and get justice. But when you see 12 killings over the last 4 years that no justice was served, and this party keeps telling you, yes, we'll do better than Trump, or we'll do better than this, and you're like, well, these things occurred under Democratic parties and Democratic presidents, as well as Congress and Senate, as well as same with Republican Senate and Congress. So it's like, what we're seeing right now is the black community is really getting fed up, and that's why, like Stedman, as you mentioned earlier in the video, you know, figuring out how we can exercise our vote where we're not letting anybody pimp us or take advantage is crucial. So,
good point, Ernest. I had mentioned, I had broke down some of that, and I've skipped that note. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
All right, let's crack into the second one, see what in the world it's got going.
Iceberg Slim breaks down some of the coldest capitalist concepts I've ever heard in my life. He describes in detail how these men break women so that they will give them the money that they make with their own bodies. There's a story in here so cold it makes me shudder to think about it. Well, Iceberg Slim is trying to control the woman that he finds uncontrollable. So he asks older pimp how he can rein her in. And the older pimp says, oh, that's easy, Iceberg. All you have to do is beat that bitch with a coat hanger. And then run her a bath and give her some pills. She'll be so grateful that you fixed her that she'll forget you were the motherfucker that beat her in the first place. That's some cold shit. Now, end of this book, Iceberg Slim tells a story. It's kind of the crescendo of the book. And in the story, Iceberg Slim's bottom bitch is at the end of her mileage. If she was good for 500 fucks, she was at 498. She was bubbling. You could see it. She was going crazy. She started saying all kinds of shit. Oh, I always wanted to be in circus. Circus, this bitch is loose. I can juggle too, you know. Juggle. He had to let her go. It's hard to let her go. A bottom bitch go. And he wasn't ready to let her go because his organization couldn't handle losing her. But she didn't know that. She didn't know how important she was. So what he did was he called her to a diner. He said, look, bitch, you and I got to part ways. She said, fine, motherfucker. I don't need you anyway because I know somebody at Ringling Brothers. She was like, all right, bitch, whatever. I got one last trick for you. It's a big money trick. If you do this for me, you get paid, I get paid, and we go our separate ways. She said, fine, motherfucker, what do you want me to do? He said, okay, there's a guy in that hotel across the street. He's waiting for you in room number 7. I want you to go over there and I want you to fuck him. But before you do, I need you to put some of this stuff in his drink. And then he's going to fall asleep. When he does, there's a briefcase on his bed. Bring the briefcase to me. That's the trick, bitch. Can you handle it? She said, fuck yeah, I can handle it. And I can't wait to get rid of you. She ran outside, jumped on a unicycle, and pedaled across the street. An iceberg washer. He was like, man, she's pretty good. Man, if I never jerked off in the face, maybe she would have been in the circus right now. And she runs up to the motel steps and she disappears in room number 7, and she's gone for a real long time. Real long time. So long, in fact, that Iceberg got a little worried. But then, suddenly, she came back. He said, what's going on, bitch? Where's the briefcase? She said, I didn't get it, Daddy. He said, what do you mean you didn't get the briefcase, bitch? What's wrong with you? She said, I did everything you said, but that man don't look right. Something wrong, Daddy. He said, what do you mean something's wrong, bitch? Did you put that stuff in his drink? She said, I did everything you said, Daddy. I put all of it in his drink. He said, wait a minute, bitch. Wait a minute. You put all of it in his drink? Now he had to see for himself. So the two of them go across the street to the motel, and they go into room number 7, and on the bed, laying lifelessly, is the white man that she was supposed to fuck. And Iceberg said, you right, bitch, she don't look good. What the fuck?
That's
Cold.
even crazier. Ernest, what was this, man? Can you help the people understand?
Yeah. So if I want to put this into context, I want to start back with what he said with these capitalistic concepts that these pimps in the 40s were familiar with. And even though it's graphic, he said, if you had one of your bitches or one of these women or people who you're trying to pimp acting out of control, how could you basically tame them? And he basically stated that it would take a traumatic experience to get that group or that person's loyalty. And so when you think about it, for Black people, the Democrats, they have been using time after time all of our traumas to play our base. And then what they would do is, beat the shit out of us with a cold iron, and then run us a warm bath, and then you make us feel better. So to give this context or give an example, let's look at the drug war. So Democratic politicians as well as Republican politicians lured Black people into this situation where they really just beat the shit out of us as a people. And then now they're talking about things like, oh, well, we're going to legalize marijuana 40 years after the fact of a consistent ass whooping, and making us feel better now after all this time. So I feel like, in this second clip, he's pretty much showing, I guess Dave Chappelle, he does a great job laying out how not even politicians, but how pimps will use their con game or use their mind to actually, I guess not empower, but to overpower someone's thinking and have you believing in a reality that isn't really even your situation. And so, looking at it now, politicians these days, they'll always try to capitalize off our situations or off our history. And then, when we're looking back at it, we're like, well, you caused that situation, yet you're trying to give me a solution or a way out.
But we still down though, right?
Yeah, it's still down.
and like to kind of continue what Ernest was saying, like I even look at it when I was listening to it, not just the drug war, but when you even think about the 94 crime bill specifically, even though Joe Biden wrote other crime bills, you're asking me to believe that a man who wrote the 94 crime bill and proudly wanted to be called the Biden Hatch crime, but he was so proud of it. I mean, you can find clips online of him talking about how happy he was, that it was tough, that he had 53 or 54 death penalty punishments in there. You expected me to believe that this guy is better than Trump. And so you're in a situation where you literally have a guy who have beat your ass for 40 years.
Basically, yeah.
Against 94, what's that? 28 years. Beat your, it's 26. Yeah, 26 years. He's beat your ass. And now you're expecting me to believe the Democratic Party or white liberals or the Black puppets they have are expecting me to believe this is going to be the person who makes my life better. What I'm saying? It's faulty thinking.
And the drug that they're using is identity politics. That's the drug. Right? Remember the story. You beat them with a hot coat iron, but then you give her the drugs to soothe her and to make her think like, you know, to fall in love with you, right? So to keep to the analogy, the drugs is identity politics. This is the whole adding Kamala onto the ticket, right? You know, we need, you know, having black faces in high places, right? But the policy hasn't changed. That stays the same. Our status hasn't changed. And then not realizing, hey, yo, these are the people that are putting us through, you know, actually put us through this in the first place. But we're so enamored by the you know, the look, right? We're so enamored by that, you know, the idea of, you know, black girl magic and so on and so forth. We go for the illusion, not thinking about the substance. And so
do you think that those optics, that identity politics that's being played, and the fact that we're playing into it is a recipe of basically, I don't know, hallucinogenic? Are we here indulging in an escape hatch dream to try to escape our problems by saying that if we get this person who looks like us into place, it's going to help us feel better because we've assimilated? But in reality, especially when you talk about Kamala, especially when you talk about Obama, and then a number of other people who have been applauded in the political space, you come to find out they don't even share really any of our accrued disadvantage, any of our lineage, and they really don't have a investment in our community. So really what we're doing is we're taking a white pill for a black problem.
Right. Yeah, I completely concur, man. It's more. It makes you feel like, for instance, Obama being in office, it made us feel good. It made us feel good by seeing a black family in the White House, a black, first lady. That was everything. That was all. And most people are still talking about, Obama's dead president, forever president. You know what I'm saying? Like, because
that's not my president. Yeah.
all while black people, by every metric, were losing and falling behind. While white millionaires and white wealth was going up, our wealth was going down. All while this was happening under the Obama administration, and and then we were okay with we liked the fact that that Kamala is in the Black Greek society and sororities or what have you. That's all great and good, but we feed into the illusions. But when you look at all of the substance behind what she's saying, oh no, I will never do anything just specifically for black people. No, with indignation she says it, right? But we still go on to this idea of her being quote unquote a black light-skinned woman in office when everything she's ever done is walked away from that. So again, I think we need to play the rest of the clip so we can get
all right.
Get this, man. Oh yeah.
One more part left. Let's see what that third part says real quick. See what it's got.
So he called a friend of his that was a doctor that was close by. And the doctor came in, gave the guy a thorough examination, and told them both what was obvious. Slim, this motherfucker is dead. Oh, God, Daddy. Oh, no. Oh, no, we killed him. He said, calm down, bitch. We didn't do anything. You killed this motherfucker. And then he reached under the bed and he grabbed the briefcase. He popped it open. It was filled with money. More money than any of them had ever seen. And Iceberg took a little bit of the money and gave it to the doctor, and the doctor left discreetly. All right, bitch, let me think. I can fix this for you. I know somebody I can call. But if I call him, I'm going to owe these motherfuckers a big favor. Oh, God, Daddy, please. I don't want to go to jail. Neither do I, bitch, so you shut up. She picked up the phone. She heard him mumbling on the phone a little bit. He hung up the phone, and she was pacing the room, and he was just standing there cool, and they were waiting, and then suddenly a van pulled up downstairs. Two guys get out with a carpet. They walk upstairs. They roll that carpet out on the floor. They throw the body in the carpet. They roll that motherfucker up like a burrito. They pick that shit up, and they throw it in the back of the van. They come back up, and Iceberg opens the briefcase again and gives them a little money. He says, I'll get in touch with you guys later. They say, you're not going to get in touch with us at all. We'll find you. He said, whatever, nigga. And they bounced. Oh, God, Daddy, oh, God. He says, relax, bitch. Listen, we're getting the fuck out of here. You go downstairs, you get the car. We got to leave separately. She went, she got the car. Iceberg grabbed that briefcase, waited a few minutes, looked out the window, and then he went down with her. They both got in the car, and they drove off. She was a blubbering mess. Oh, you did all this shit. He said, I told you, bitch, we didn't do anything. You killed a motherfucker, and I cleaned him up. And now we got a secret, okay? I know I'm not going to tell, bitch. It's you? Oh, no, I ain't going to tell. He said, all right, baby, cool. I'm going to need you to stay with me for a while till this shit cools down. She goes, okay. That's the game. That's how the whole shit works, ladies. You understand? This bitch was at the end of her mileage. She was at 498. She ended up tricking for Iceberg for another 6 months. She must have turned another 200 tricks for him. Do you understand? That's some cold shit. And the cold shit about it is that the dead guy on the bed wasn't even dead at all. This motherfucker was just a friend of Iceberg's acting like he's asleep. The doctor wasn't a doctor. It was a motherfucking butcher that happened to have a white coat. And the dudes who came in the moving van clothes was dressed like movers because they were movers. Iceberg had gotten a new apartment. And the bag of money was Iceberg's money in the first place. The money he got from all those women. That's a cold game.
That's a
Cold game.
Man, all right.
Whole world.
Stedman, can you explain? Bring this all 360 for us, man, because I'm trying to connect it back to what you were saying earlier.
Okay, so just looking at the finale of the joke, where you can see how he said, she was with him another 6 months. She was at her, 2 fucks from her mileage, and she was there another 6 months. Maybe got another 200 out of her. When you look at, so we got tokens, right? You had Jesse Jackson run for president. You had Shirley Chisholm run before that. You had, I can't remember the senator from Massachusetts. I think it was the first black male senator after Reconstruction. And so you had these different tokens every so often to try to get black people to buy into democratic ideology. And that culminates in what? Barack Obama, like Jahrod was saying. That culminates in Barack Obama, right? But then what happens? For 8 years, you have a black president. What happens to black people? You see black homeownership rates fall to lower levels than during segregation, right? You see black wealth drop because most black wealth is tied to home ownership. You see there's no type of specific programs for black people, black people, whether they be foreign or native black people. And that goes on for 8 years. You see no reprieve from police shootings. What does Obama do? 8 years in office. And he signs the Blue Lives Matter bill. The most he did for any of the victims for police shootings is he went and did the funeral. I believe it was he was at the funeral in South Carolina. And then he cried when Trayvon got shot and said, if he had a son, he looked like Trayvon, and he can remember being young in Chicago. And when he'd walk by people's car, they would lock their doors. That was it. He didn't do anything substantial or substantive for black people. And then what happened? So now you got black people who are jaded. We've that 8 years has really, in a way, demoralized us. We're disillusioned now. For a lot of black people, myself included, we were not really capable of believing that a black man or a black person could do the same types of evil things that 43 other white presidents have been responsible for. It was inconceivable for a lot of us that a black man or a black person could do that same type of thing. And so what you find is, especially black men, are looking at the political landscape and they're completely apathetic because you don't feel like you have any way out. And so this is going to be kind of controversial. But what you see is the Democratic Party in 2016, they hyped up black women as the backbone of the Democratic Party. They continue to hype black women up. They continue to hype black women up. And so now what you see even today is that there is, I get mail to my house, political mail. I'm not addressed on the mail. My wife is addressed. And it's still under this idea that the woman of the house and the black family controls all decision making, full stop. So it's not even a partnership where you put my name second and you put my wife's name first. It's this idea that the woman is the decision maker. So whatever you say, do as the woman, your husband's going to listen, because the black family is woman centered. Typically, historically, the black family in America is female centered. And so now what they're trying to do in order to continue to have us move past our mileage, our limit, right? To get over this apathy that most black voters feel. They put Kamala Harris up there, a career prosecutor who has a history of her own corruption, a self-avowed top cop. That's who, Crime Bill Joe gives black people to reassure us what? That he's looking out for our best interests. And so you still see now today how this same cycle of use and abuse works. And I really think most of the black people, myself especially, are fed up with it. If it means 4 more years of Trump for the Democratic Party to get the idea that they've got to do something else, you can't keep living off the Voting Rights Act. You can't keep living off the Civil Rights Act. You can't keep talking about John Lewis. You can't talk about James Clyburn and Elijah Cummings, because I don't know those guys. You know what I'm saying? They mean nothing to me. Whatever contributions they made to the black freedom struggle, while they may be appreciated, are 50 and 60 years old. You see what I'm saying? And so you have to be critical as a black person. You have to be critical. And you have to feel confident in what you believe and what you experience, and voice your concern and speak your truth. But also, like what Jahrod was saying, you look at MSNBC, you look at Angela Rye on CNN, you look at Jonathan Capehart on MSNBC, you look at Don Lemon on CNN, you look at April Ryan, you look at, what's his name, Charles Blow, you look at Roland Martin, right? All these people are invested in a system that has allowed them a certain status that the average black person doesn't have. So they're invested in a system that oppresses the majority of us so that they can feel special and elevated. And you want me to continue to play this game. I had a person text me, and we had this long, the political, it might have been over the course of an hour. And I finally ended the conversation by saying, look, I'm not voting for Joe Biden. Black people have had to eat shit in this country for 400 years. And it's about time somebody else pulled up a seat next to us. And I mean, that's how it is. I'm not going to be the moral center for this country no more. That's not a badge of honor for me, where they try to show black women are the backbone. I don't want to be the backbone of a jellyfish, okay? I don't have no interest in that. If you're not talking about doing something for me, that's perfectly fine. But I'm going to go do something for myself. And so, I don't want to be the bottom bitch. I don't want to be past my mileage. I want to be free. You know what I'm saying? I want to be free. And you have a lot of black people who don't want to be free. They want to be the bottom bitch because they like tokens. You see they want to be put on the pedestal. I want to be free. Let me live or fail, but let me be free. Treat me equal. Give me justice, but let me be free. Let all my people be free.
And so when you say free, you're talking about free to actually make decisions in this ballot, in this political battle to move our community forward in terms of voting for policy over identity politics. And also the thing you also touched on in regards to the Democratic Party talking about the past historical achievements that they've been part of, and also, lifting up names from our history of civil rights, even our ancestors, reintroducing those names into conversations over and over again, even 20, 40 years later, because they're actually resting on their laurels. They're kind of just, they're looking back and trying to use old money to pay the new debt. They're trying to cash in something they've already cashed in already, because they haven't shown any progress. They're not doing anything. So they keep trying to just use old business to fuel new business
Right.
from the Black community. And so
Right.
it's,
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
no, I was going to say, like you were saying, Darvell, that definitely they capitalizing off of that social capital. And if we really want to think about it, they even bringing out, Obama to do some of the cheerleading for the Democratic Party and to assuage our thoughts as black males to say, yeah, I mean, Obama's supporting Joe, so we might as well support him too. But
how long you think Obama gonna have fuel to do this? How long you think they're gonna be able to use Obama?
So like you said, we all are experiencing the limits of our knowledge. And with Obama specifically, we're not really giving him as much social capital as we would have once gave him. And that shows to the Democratic Party. It shows them they have to, start thinking about how they want to approach us, strategically. And ultimately, after this election, we'll see what the results are. Because if we're talking about black people being 80 to 90% of this party's support, or at least 80 or 90% of our voter population is supporting this single party for the last 40 years. And we look at 2016, 98% of black women voted Democratic according to Pew's research. And then 81% of black males voted Democratic according to their research. As these things start to come to light and as we start to see a decrease, I think that's where the Democratic Party will start addressing us with actual policies and change for us. But in order to do that, we got to reduce that 98% that we're currently seeing for some of our sisters. And that's an issue because the black woman does have a certain power in the household in the sense of saying that, like me, being from Chicago, I say I got about 4 grandmothers still alive. And in each of my households, those grandmothers play a significant role into how my aunties think or how my uncles think and things like that. And so usually, as a family unit, we try to stick together, but we have our black sheep that, think Republican is now the way, but it's like, bro, they're not even focused on cities, But as we start looking at the reality of these things, we have to, I would say there are older black voters who are politically invested in the Democratic Party. And because of all of the mistakes that they have made together over time with this party, as far as crafting policies or demanding policies from our group, all of that accumulated failure is now leading the younger generations to say we need change. We actually need substantive policies and things of that nature. And so, that's just my 2 cents on that for now.
So, when you start talking about substantive policy and talking about getting what we are owed in a sense, and especially going all the way back to what Stedman was saying earlier, there's got to be a way to do that to start to move that needle forward. Jahrod, if we're at this point where, like Ernest was saying, we have the household that's controlled more politically by women for various reasons, and we are starting to make a shift in the Democratic Party where we're starting to understand we're not just here just to be here anymore. What does that turn into strategic wise? What is the tactic? Where do we go from here in terms of boots to the ground?
One is by demanding an agenda. We have to be agenda focused, okay, a black agenda focus, and having a litmus test for these politicians. We shouldn't be giving our votes away. Voting is an exchange, not a gift. And see, the thing about it is that you have to have a credible threat, and when you're doing negotiations, you have to have a line to say, hey, I'm not crossing this line, right? You know what I mean? And unfortunately, because of all of the disadvantage that we have, the political process really is the only leverage that we have as a people collectively. Yes, others black people that have money in certain spaces and here and there, but collectively we don't have an economic base to really influence a lot of things. So our political base, our political power is, if we came together and really solidified in that and demanded something, then we will be able to, affect a change or what have you, greater than our numbers into this country. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the Southern Democrats, right? The Southern Democrats were isolated. Okay, they were isolated. If you think as an actual entity, and they were an entity within an entity. But because they had the ability to basically be, the split the vote any direction that they went with, that gave them oversized power to the actual numbers. And that's kind of like why when you hear people state to black people, like, you know, when we talk about reparations, it's like, oh, you know, white people never do this and they'll never do that, and so on and so forth. Well, you know, through this political process, this is how we can make them come to the heel, is that, hey, look, you know, the credible threat is that, you know, you want to live another 4 years with Trump, you know what I mean, or you want to meet, you know, my demands, and if they don't, and they say, you know, I raise you like in, you know, poker or something, right? They're gonna call your bluff. You got to be willing to go down with that, you know, and part of that, and a great way of doing it, how you can exercise that is down ballot voting. You know, that's a tactic. In the 2016 election in Michigan, over 90,000 something people did not vote in the presidential election. What that did was send a signal to the Democratic Party that said, hey, what we're offering isn't meeting what a good block of voters want. By not voting, you wouldn't have been able to give that message. So you have to vote. You have to go through the process of voting. But that said that these people came in, they sat in line, they, you know, whatever it was that they had to do to vote, and they chose to skip the presidential top ticket, and they voted everything down, right? That's a dedicated voter. You know, that's a voter that takes his right seriously, and it sent a message. And if you saw in the presidential primary for the Democrats, all of the policies that were talked about by Bernie Sanders became mainstream policies. For instance, Medicare for all. You know, that was unheard of before. That was a far left idea. Now it's like common parlance now, right? You know, he was able to affect the change, and that was because so many people, you know, voted down ballot that, you know, showed the disgust for what the establishment was pushing forward. So my tactic would be in this election the same thing. You know, I don't say go vote for the Republican side because they're not offering us anything. I say vote down ballot, because that's going to send a message to the Democrats that, look, you know, you double down on this establishment, pro corporate, you know, lock them up Democrat, right? The first time was, you know, in 2016, the criticism of Hillary Clinton was that, you know, she called, you know, black people super predators, and her husband was the one that passed the Clinton, you know, 94 crime bill. Now we got the actual architect of the bill on the ballot with the top cop. So, you know, coming out of with Kamala Harris, right? So you guys actually doubled down on your in my middle finger to progressives and black people who are against this. So I say we have to double down in our response. And, like, you know, losing the election, unfortunately, really is the only way, because if we come out of this and we got Biden and Kamala Harris in 2020, you know, we're right back to the, you know, hey, here we go. Just like in you know, I got you for another four more years, right? You know what I mean? They're gonna think they won. But, you know, they say this is gonna work. This works. This identity politics stuff works. This is going to go, and now we're going to be right back to the same cycle all over again. We lost our level.
Well, and not even just identity politics, but the whole idea. Like, you look at Joe Biden's campaign, and I mean, as much as it existed, it didn't do anything. He never made an affirmative statement. You know, Build Back Better, the soul of America. Like, what does this mean? America ain't never had a soul. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about?
Trump is the most racist president.
You know what I'm saying? Trump wasn't even the most racist person on the debate stage last Tuesday.
Running on is just anti-Trump, and that's the whole thing. That's all they got.
But see, that's the illusion that they want us to stay in. So if we tie this back to Dave Chappelle, he had to trick his bottom bitch by telling her, like, this is worse than what you would be if you were by yourself or making decisions for yourself. So now I need you to stick with me for additional years so that we can fix this shit. And then we can come back to maybe considering you getting your freedom or doing what you need to do. And that's what they're doing. Go ahead.
Well, that's basically what they told Cube. Come get us when we win. Yes. Come get us when we win. You know what I'm saying? So look, I give you a 4-year job that I can't fire you from, and then I'm supposed to hold you accountable. Nah, dog, that's not going to work.
So
you know what I'm saying?
You reminded me of something very recent. So I'm watching this series on Amazon Prime right now. It's called Mr. Robot. Some of you may have seen it out there. But I'm on the 4th season, and I'm in this scene where basically there's a discussion between two of the protagonists or the antagonist. I don't know which the title is. Anyway, what he said was really interesting because he said he had been told by other people in his life, or he had been telling other people who he was trying to control to be patient with him. So what he would do is he would tell someone who wanted change that he was never promised, he was never going to deliver. He would tell them to just be patient. And what he was doing is he was trying to subdue them. He was trying to get them to give up because he was saying, we're going to get there eventually, but I need to do this and that, and I got to work this and that. And so we got to do this first. Just like what we're seeing right now with trying to get Trump out. Like anybody you talk to on the street, especially within the Black community, unfortunately, their biggest thing right now is we got to get Trump out. But when you hit them with where's the policy, why would you give your vote to the Democrats after so many years? This is the perfect time to use the leverage we have to get what we really needed forever. They said, well, be patient. We got to get Joe out. We don't have, we can't do both things right now. We're going to risk keeping Trump in there, So that be patient term is what I ran into in that series, Mr. Robot. Be patient really means to get someone to give up. It's really giving them to surrender.
Just to add on top of that be patient example, that's what Obama has done. So he's telling us he couldn't get things done because there was a Republican Congress when he was in office, but Democrats owned that Congress for 2 years prior to the Republicans taking over in the midterms. So have this patience until we get Joe in and Kamala in, and then we'll hopefully try to get the Congress to go fully Democrat, and then we can give y'all some change. That's not really how it works. And if we look at the policies,
that could be possibly 2020,
2030 something.
Man, that's just like what I said. I'm gonna go to the car dealership. The salesman gonna give me the keys, not even take my ID. I'm gonna bring the car back.
Right.
But I wanted to comment. So earlier I said it was Hubert Humphrey, and it was George McGovern. The second term ran against Nixon. He only won 2 states, and one of wasn't even his home state. And that's really when you started to see the shift from, the Democratic Party being this, because McGovern was anti Vietnam War, spoke out against the war. That was the election with the Watergate scandal. So Nixon really, he demolished McGovern, but he was so, paranoid that he ended up doing the whole Watergate scandal. And then, Carter won, but Carter kind of won more because of a repudiation of, Nixon and Gerald Ford. And then, Carter got 1 term, and then you get 2 terms of Reagan. Then they liked Reagan so much they voted for his vice president for 1 term. And then Bill Clinton won by, being Reagan again, basically. And so, that's really been the shift in American, the American political scene. And as far as Ernest and Jahrod were talking about, about having to be willing to say, as a Black person, this should be easy for us because we don't have nothing really. We don't have homes. We lost all our homes when Obama was president. We don't really have good jobs because we lost all those when Obama was president. And if not, we're losing them, with the coronavirus. And so we shouldn't really be nervous about having to deal with this situation. And so, when you look at the 64 election, when they had, what's his name? Barry Goldwater. They really credit Barry Goldwater with shifting the Republican Party from what it was to what it became to. Even though he lost, he really kind of cemented the modern conservative Republican ideology as the party identity going forward. And so that's what you got to do too. You have to be willing to lose the battle to win the war. They always people always talk about the, like I said, I think I said in the last video, they say the South lost the war but won the peace as in a reference to the Civil War. And like I said, as caveats to that, I believe, the North really thought that all they needed to do was have a union. They didn't really care about Black people or freedom or slavery or none of that. They just wanted a union. So after that, the South lost that part of it. They were completely fine to let them legislate and delegate what happened. And so in this situation, you got to be willing to lose the war, battle and win the war. We got to be willing to take a concession for 4 years of if that's Trump, you know, to prove to the Democratic Party, hey, we're not interested. We're not playing this game. Come correct, give us something, or, you know, that's it.
Goldwater liked states' rights, right? Wasn't he one of the guys?
Yeah, he was a big states' rights proponent, which is to say, you know, no federal control as far as enforcing anti-segregation laws or busing, which Joe Biden supported busing. He supported states' rights. I mean, like I've said before, Joe Biden is a Dixiecrat. That's what he was. He joined the Democratic Party at a time when they were still racist. I mean, some of his heroes were actual Klan members. You know, Strom Thurmond raped his maid. She was 16. He was 21. He raped his maid and had a child with her. And the lady's like 80 or 70 or something. And she didn't come out and identify herself until after he died, because that was like one of his requests, that she didn't come out before, like, but you know, like I said, Ronald Byrd in West Virginia, that's one of Hillary Clinton's homeboys too. And like, he apologized for being a racist or whatever. Like, dog, spare me. Okay. Spare me. Spare me. I just want to know what you're doing for us. I don't care if you call me the N-word to all your friends when you're all doing whatever you're doing, but make sure that I get some equality and justice on the front end. If I'm getting freedom and equality and justice and reparations, if I'm being made whole, then, you know, that's all perfectly fine. But, you know, you can't just abuse me like this on the back end and the front end and then think I'm gonna vote for y'all again. That doesn't work. That's that 3-card Monte, the shell game, where they shuffling shit around. See, they want you to just keep eating it. You know,
but that speaks to a greater issue. So like, they know that we're getting to the end of our mileage, and what they're doing right now is introducing a new bottom bitch. You know, we all seeing it, and as it goes, they're trying to, you know, legalize 11 million of people who want opportunities. But before they get more specific into policies, they'll give these people the chance to become the new bottom, replace us, and then look at us and say, well, why can't you guys work hard or support us like everyone else is? Everyone else is being patient. Why can't you be patient? And we've like, we've been doing this for 100 years or 400. Even longer.
Well, and see, one of the caveats
it's so critical. That's why right now this election is so critical. Go ahead, Stedman.
One of the caveats to that, though, and this is like the poetic justice part. They're trying with Latinos with the idea, like I was watching some show and they said, like, one of the internal Democratic talking points is that Latinos are very brand loyal. So if you can get them to support a brand, the Democratic Party, you can kind of establish that for generations. The issue is that a lot of Hispanics or Latinos or whatever consider themselves white. And so if they can be white and they can have the trappings of whiteness in America, eventually they're going to be Republican because, you know, they have something to lose. They have skin in this game. So you can create 11 million new Democratic voters today, and 20 years from now, their children will be voting Republican. You know what I'm saying? And so you're going to have to address this situation somehow, some way. You're going to have to fix this. And, you know, whether you want to do it this election cycle, I don't see that there's any time. You know, I mean, like I said, I cannot advocate voting for Joe Biden in good conscience to anyone. So, I mean, there's no time in this election cycle to do anything about it. So, I mean, we're going to try in 2024. Maybe they'll bring somebody better. If not, you know, Mike Pence 2024 and probably 2028. I mean, I don't really see it, you know.
See, the pressure builds 2022, though, you know, when we get to these midterms. And so they're going to be encouraging us to get out to vote. But in these situations, we're going to be saying, Joe's in office. What have we gotten? Our hands are out. We're being patient.
If only our people would listen. Even when you say that, if only our people would listen at that point. And we had the same thing happen with Obama, but people was like, there was meandering still. They meandered enough to show up at the polls and keep them in there. But then when we came out in 2016, it was like, no, I don't even feel like doing it no more. Oh, you got disenfranchised 2 times in a row, but now all of a sudden you want to pop out because Trump's in office. That's what happens when they don't give you the proper politics and the people with the head. So if they're still not offering that, there's no reason to pop out. Now, I'm not saying don't vote, but when we talk about don't pop out, we're talking about voting down ballot. That means we're abstaining from the top of the ballot. The top of the ballot contains no candidates that are representing policies or platforms or any type of directionally correct transformative justice or programs specifically for Black people. And it's important to make it specific to Black people, because right now, even when you go to any candidate you was looking at during the primaries and you look at their platform that they have on their website, everything that they had in there was a bunch of baloney class politics that they kind of tweaked the language on and threw it inside of their Black agenda section on their site. But you could find a copy of the same exact program in a different section of their site. So it's like they went and picked all these different things from different areas and put them together on one page and then say, oh, this is the Black agenda. But ain't nothing on here about Black people.
Don't do Elizabeth Warren like that.
Oh, yeah, right. See, and that's a good example.
Don't do Liz like that.
We talk about, being out here and trying to do the real work. That's an example of what we've done before we even got to this video at the beginning of the year. We went and sat down with our people here in Detroit and went over line by line by line their entire platform. And when we went to that Black agenda section, it was just like, set it on fire. There's nothing in here and it's going to burn and burn and burn. And so they really were like, well, okay, we get it. And so there are ADOS people who are running for these programs, or rather who are working for these candidates, who they understand in basic terms why these things don't work, but they don't have the leverage individually to make the change. So they go back to basically white supremacy and ask, hey, can you change this and do the right thing by the Black people? We got to have everybody on code.
Right. And see, but that takes a certain level of like selflessness that we talk about, like I talked about earlier. When you look at the mainstream media, news outlets, your media outlets, everybody, and this is a condition of really being ADOS, the condition of being a person in these conditions, in this living environment, is that you see success through a lens. Like James Baldwin talks about it in The Fire Next Time, where he was talking to, he had gone to Elijah Muhammad's house and had dinner with the Nation of Islam. And he was talking to a young guy who was taking him to the north side of Chicago. And he was saying, like, if Black people do get all their own land, like, the Nation of Islam, I don't know if they still do this, but they were preaching for, a separate land within America, like their own country, I guess, within this country. And he said, how are you gonna achieve the symbols of power that you become accustomed to? And that's one of the things people don't think about. Like, because we're ADOS, you're not going to be content to work the land. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to be content to catch water in a rain barrel. You know what I mean? You're not going to be content to go to the river with a washboard and wash your clothes. So these people have gained this status where they can take their kids to certain, boarding schools or elite private schools. They can live in this, high-rise apartments. They get paid a nice chunk of money. They have a little bit of notoriety. People know them when they go through the airport or through the mall or whatever. They don't want to be me. They don't want to be y'all. They don't want to be none of us. So they're fine to sell us out because they look at that as a condition of business. Just like, you remember in the Boondocks when they had Reverend Rollo Goodlove, and he was talking about going on a hunger strike, and every time Huey saw him, he was eating. And he was like, yo, man, you eating. He was like, man, niggas just gonna be niggas. You need to get this money while you bullshitting. And that's the mentality. Those people at the top have taken on the mentality of white supremacy, that niggas is just gonna be niggas, and you gotta look out for you. And I reject that. I reject that.
If you don't,
you know what I'm saying? I reject it.
If you start looking out for yourself, that's when the people who trying to keep us in line try to keep us in line, and that's what we see time and time and again. People who don't really have our interests at heart, just their own interests, and so that's the issue.
They get them butter biscuits, don't they? They get them butter biscuits. Hey, whether it's a single one from Chick-fil-A in the morning, or if you're getting an 8-pack from KFC at night, they getting them biscuits somehow.
As long as if they reheated a week old and they got to put them in the microwave with the wet towel on them, they want them. They want them. They want them. You know what I'm saying? Because they know you don't have none. So they'd rather have a stale butter biscuit than none at all. You see? And so I reject that mentality, man. I want my people free. I want us to be made whole. I want justice, and there's no way to beat around the bush. You got to give us what we owe. You got to make us whole. That's how you get my vote. The same way you give the business what they want, the same way you give Wall Street and the billionaires what they want, the same way you want to give the dreamers or DACA what they want. I got to get what I need. You want to have like Obama, when he said, he told the trans community that the White House and the Justice Department stand with you. He never said that for black people. Never one time did Obama say that he stood with black people. The best we got was he's not the black president or the white president. He's an American president. That's the best we got.
Joe Biden's left Twix, right Twix.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's what it is. Left Twix, right Twix.
Gentlemen, listen, I think this has been an awesome discussion. I think we brought home the point, right? Unfortunately, I need our entire community, ADOS and non-ADOS, to really be serious and look at this and realize, are we really the bottom bitch of this Democratic Party? Have we been the most down? Are we the most down? I would say yes. And I think that joke was very relevant to exactly what we're facing right now in 2020. And we hope to not be facing this again in 2024 or anytime in the future. But it really takes us coming together and being honest about what's going on. So we're going to close it out. Any last words, Ernest, you got before we wrap it up?
Oh, no, man. Just reiterate what you said. It's time for our people to start thinking as a collective, also starting to think outside the box, but try to be independent in your thought process and look at your situation objectively. So has things changed for you? I seen a good post on Twitter. They had this one hood, and it wasn't in Detroit or anywhere, but it was in the hood of some city in America, and they had these different pictures of this hood as time went by. So they're like, this is the hood in 1980 when, Reagan was president. This is the hood when, Bush was president. This is the hood when Clinton and Obama was president. And they said the hood has never changed because these people have never produced policies to fix those situations. And it just looked the same throughout the years.
Yeah, that was it was one on Twitter too. It was a meme. It was LA, and it showed like Tent City, and it said homelessness under Trump, and the other was homelessness under Biden, and it was just the same picture. And that's really what it is. I mean, you have to start looking at these things objectively for yourself, not what somebody told you. Live your own truth, what you feel inside. Now, that doesn't mean that everything you think is right. That doesn't mean, you still need to ground yourself in knowledge. You still need to try to understand things. You need to go and research. You need to go and investigate. But you gotta, when you find out that you've investigated, when you find out that you've researched, when you've gone and you've attained the knowledge, then you gotta trust what you see and what you feel and what you experience. You see what I'm saying? And that's what it is, like the bottom bitch. What they try to do is they try to, like Richard Pryor got a joke. His wife walked in on him cheating on her, right? And she was like, upset about it. And she was like, what are you doing? He's like, I ain't doing nothing. She was like, I see you. He said, who you gonna believe, bitch? Me or your lying eyes? And so the Democratic Party, they want us to believe them, not our lying eyes, not what you see every day, not what you live, not your truth. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Is it you gonna believe me or your lying eyes? And so I'm gonna believe my lying eyes. I'm gonna believe my lying eyes.
Well, listen, again, thank you everyone for tuning in for this first episode of the Freedmen Collective. We hope you enjoyed what you heard today and you took some knowledge away that will help you move forward in your political endeavors and enrich yourself in the movement for Black lives, specifically in this country, ADOS lives, as we are still the undergirding of this country's existence and rise to power. So I thank everyone for their time. We're out and we're going to see you guys next time. All right. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Peace.